Hi, and welcome to Things in My Head. I'm Angel, your host. Hey, today we are talking about something that I get a lot of questions about, especially on Facebook. A lot of people are asking me, how did you get started in the voiceover business? And hey, I've been told I've got a great voice. I've seen the articles online. It's easy money, and I think I could do this. And what kind of microphone should I buy? And how should I get started in this? And my first answer is always, it's not what you think it is. And so today, I could be an expert and tell you all about it and sit here and babble for half an hour. But I got someone with me who is one of my voiceover buds. He and I work a lot together, and we kind of started this discussion and decided that, you know what, we needed to come on and tell the skinny about voiceovers. So we're going to tell you the truth about voiceovers with Erik Reynolds right after this.
Your wedding day. You've dreamed about it your whole life. You want the perfect dress, the perfect flowers. So call Bridgeport Lake Bed and Breakfast for the perfect location. Nestled on Bridgeport Lake in Texas, your dream wedding will come to life with the help of our professional wedding coordinator who can handle your perfect day as if it were her own. Make your dreams come true. Call Bridgeport Lake Bed and Breakfast 940-644-0081 or visit www.bridgeportlakebnb.com.
Hi, and welcome back to Things in My Head. So, voiceovers. We're talking today with a buddy of mine who is also in the voiceover industry. In fact, we do a lot of work together. Erik Reynolds is the voice of Hitachi, and I joke around with him. He is the Duncan Donut man. So if you've ever heard these commercials about the free donuts and things like that, he is the Duncan Donut guy. So if you ever hear those commercials, that's who this is. Erik, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Angel, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm not quite awake this morning, but we're doing all right.
Hey, let me correct something real quick. I am a voice with Hitachi. I'm not the only, and it's generally most of their corporate stuff. So if you hear a TV commercial, it's this wonderful, sultry female voice. That was not me. And the same thing with Duncan Donuts. From my context there, they actually have a few different people they use for different commercial scenarios. That's
usually the case with corporates anyway. Now that you've brought that up, you know, like just because you do a few commercials for a company or just because you do some work for a company, you're not necessarily the only one they work with. They may have a whole roster of people that they work with.
Well, yeah, especially in this globalized industry that we have now, it's so easy to reach out and find exactly what you're looking for very specifically what you're wanting to do. So like with Hitachi, I know there's 4 of us that they use with their corporate narrations and their in-store ads. And then same thing with Duncan. I know I'm one of 2 male voices in North America for radio and for Pandora. So, I don't want to get in any trouble legally with saying I'm the voice. I don't get any free donuts, but I do voice commercials.
We wish.
Yeah, no, I do. I really do.
There'd be like free donuts for everybody, man.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't voice any other commercials. I wouldn't be able to. I'd have so much donuts stuffed in my mouth. So
it is fair to say, like even though you do work with some pretty high-power brands. I mean, let's be honest with you. They are high-power brands. People recognize them. They're national brands. Mm-hmm. You're not necessarily national with those people. You're not necessarily on TV or even radio. Sometimes they just do, like you said, corporate videos, things like that. Phone messaging is a big one. They may call you up and say, hey, we just want you to voice the message on our telephone. We just want you to be the voice when people call our company in Liberty, Missouri. It could be like one office in one remote part of the world. And yeah, but I tease Erik because I tell him he is the donut man because he does such a good job on those commercials, and I just love him in those commercials. So.
Thank you. My kids wish I was the donut man. They always want me to go get donuts. We don't even have a Dunkin' Donuts in my local area here, but my kids want me to go find a Dunkin' Donuts to bring them donuts. I tell you.
So here it is now. There's an all call out. If you have a Dunkin' Donuts in the area, please send a box of donuts to Erik.
Please.
The address is.
My children will love me finally.
So voiceovers. Okay, you and I both actually get this a lot. I know from different people. There constantly asking, how do I get into voiceover? Somebody told me I have this great radio voice. I should be doing commercials. I'm really good on the phone. I should be doing voiceovers. Or I do lots of character voices when I'm reading my kids a bedtime story, and I think I'm really good at this. And it just seems so easy, or I've been told it's really easy. And let's not forget the articles on the internet that have placed voiceover as the number 2, the highest ranking?
Yeah, I saw that.
Business that you can get at home, or you can do at home, that's going to earn money.
Home business, I saw that. That kind of baffles me a little bit.
Yeah, me too. I'm like,
I'm thinking, who did you interview, or who did this survey or this query, and can I get to know them?
Joe Cipriano.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
And we'll tell you who that is a little bit later if you don't know who that is. But yeah, so what's the scoop? If I have a great voice, should I try voiceover?
Angel, it's a great industry and a great field to be in. I absolutely love what I do for a living, and I know you do as well. But I'll tell you and your listeners, and of course I'm sure you've told the ones that you've talked to as well, there's so much more to it than just a great voice. One of the examples I use all the time is Gilbert Gottfried. He was the Aflac Duck voice for so long, and he didn't get that and didn't make all that success because he had such a wonderful voice, had all these characters. Actually, he got it because he has such a horrible voice, really, in all honesty. I mean, as far as, tone and things like that, it's not a soothing voice at all. So it goes so much further than just a good voice. There's training that goes along with it. Another thing I tell people a lot is, hey, I saw you throw that football. You did such a great job. You should be the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Of course, there's training that goes along with it. There's a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work that goes into it. But I won't lie, it's a wonderful field if it really works out for you. But it's not for everybody, but it's a growing field as well. So it's one of those things, if you have that kind of itch, somebody's told you something and maybe you're interested in it. That's really how I know I kind of got started, is somebody told me I had a great voice, and I started doing the research and learning about it and spent years and years and years honing the craft.
Your overnight success took 17 years. Yeah, that's kind of my story too.
Yeah, exactly. 18 years for me if we're counting, but yeah, it's not an overnight thing. It's not a get rich quick thing. It's one of those things where you give up, if you go into it full time, a 40-hour work week to do about a 100-hour work week. I am at home. My children are on the other side of the wall right now, but I'm locked away in my studio most of the day. And, I come out for dinner, come out for lunch, and then I go right back in. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I don't want anybody to think because I love it that it's just so simple. Anybody can do it. Go grab a microphone from the Radio Shack and, get started making millions.
Yeah. And see, that's another thing. That's another thing to bring up, too. Just because you have a good voice doesn't mean that first of all, you're going to be able to have the correct equipment, because it does take a lot of equipment. It does take a lot of good equipment. And you and I have had that discussion several times. And where you live can really play a factor, because I know I'm constantly posting on Facebook that since we moved to this area, my business went right downhill because of all the noise that I have to get out of my particular audio. And it gets frustrating because I lose a lot of clients because I can't record at certain times, or I can't do an ISDN or a Source Connect connection. And, it can be a real factor and it can hurt your business.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of factors involved. It's not just because you have a good voice.
Well, absolutely. And to kind of piggyback on what you're saying there, the house I'm in now, and I work from home, and you work from home as well. It's a brand new neighborhood. When I moved in, we were literally the fourth house in this neighborhood that's ultimately going to be 1,700 homes. Well, that's a lot of construction noise, and that I've had to work with and work around. And, thankfully, and we've been able to gracefully kind of navigate that. But we're real close to an airport. So there's things, there's nothing.
Same here.
I mean, the most soundproof booth can't avoid some of the airplane rumbles and construction trucks.
Yeah, I hate to tell you, but even the Cadillac of sound booths will not get rid of the noise of a C-130 going over your house. It just doesn't work.
And we're kind of the same boat as you're close to an airport that has military aircraft. I am too. And so the C-130 is a real big deal. For years ago, and not to make us political or not, but when George Bush was president and he was in office, and of course I'm in Texas, Air Force One would fly directly over my house right before it lands. That's how close I am to the airport. So literally just a few thousand feet over my house is Air Force One, and then hit all the escort and the fighter jets and things. And all you can do is just wait while that's happening.
Yeah, and we get the same thing, too, here being close to a military airport. Air Force One would come in, and same thing, whenever they would land in our area, and then after that, you would have, because I live close to a highway, we would have actually the military escort would come through with the sirens and everything, and you just kind of had to... You have to watch the president's schedule. When is he going to be in your area, for one thing? That was something that we always had to do. Not so much anymore, but... I mean, there's just so many different factors, equipment, the place where you live, and you talked about coaching a little bit earlier. You can't just plug in a microphone and start doing it and expect that you're going to be the best voiceover out there, because I got to tell you, there's probably over 1 million people just in this country that are doing the same thing you are doing. And trying for the same jobs. If you go on any pay-to-play site, and there are a few of them, I'm not going to list them, but there are a few pay-to-play sites for voiceover artists. If you go on any of those and do one audition, there's probably going to be another 100 people that are going to do the same audition at the same time you are, vying for that particular job. And, it can get real nerve-wracking, to be honest with you. It's because I think people get the idea that it's so easy to get into it. And then when they don't get the jobs and they're frustrated, the first thing I tell people is, did you get a coach? Did you go and take a seminar, even a webinar, something that would familiarize you with this business? Because it's a business. It's not just being creative and getting behind a mic and doing what we do. Right. I mean, just because I can do 10 voices or 10 different characters doesn't mean I'm going to do cartoon work in LA.
Exactly.
It's just not going to happen. But get a coach. Coach it up and learn your craft, learn the business.
And Angel, I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's one of the things that's so important, is to make sure you're training. One thing I tell people a lot is, when I'm talking to either colleagues or somebody that's new in the industry and they're asking, well, I'm not seeing the success that I thought I would. The thing I tell them is, well, somebody is working at least as hard, if not a lot harder, than you are at this right now, to do the exact same thing that you're doing, the exact same agents that you're trying to reach out to, the exact same corporations that you're trying to reach out to, the exact same production houses or ad agencies. Somebody else is doing it at least as hard as you are, if not harder than you are. And it's a expanding industry, and you know this really since 2007. It's kind of really taken this sharp left turn, and the industry kind of just took off. Just like all the service industries, but also all the entertainment industries. I liken it kind of to like when the MP3 was introduced to the music industry. We're kind of right in that right now, where we're still kind of figuring out exactly what's going on with, like you said, the pay-to-plays and the direct access that production houses and ad agencies have to us now, versus having to go through an agent. That's no longer the only way to get work any longer. So there's so much to it.
And the industry's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving, too. I mean, just over the 17 years that I have been in the voice entertainment industry, because it wasn't all voiceovers during my 17 years, but during that whole time, if I wasn't strictly doing voiceovers and coming back to it, the industry changed almost 180 degrees.
Well, there's so many more opportunities now, too, that weren't around years ago.
The introduction of the internet really played a big part in that. Everybody has a home computer and everybody has access to information. Everybody has access to jobs, and companies have access to you.
Well, and then, of course, now with technology, everybody has their own high-definition camera. That makes everybody a production company. And they have access to us, all the different ways you can reach out to different creative professionals. The advent of the explainer video. That was something that wasn't around even a couple of years ago. That's really one of the largest industries now for the specifically the non-union voiceover artist, the explainer video.
Yeah, and that's where I make a lot of my money, as a matter of fact, is in explainer videos for companies. And
or the video sales letter, or toys, or there's so many different areas and so many ways to get involved.
And there's the other thing too is, you mentioned that, and we're going to touch briefly on this before commercial break, but the different jobs that you can do, voiceover has changed. It's not necessarily just I'm going to do a commercial that's going to be played nationally, like we said, or even locally. You may never get on the radio or television. You may never get on the internet, to be honest with you, because there's so many different avenues that you can go to. One of the things that you mentioned were toys. The guy who did Teddy Ruxpin, nobody knew who this guy was for the longest time until someone one day wanted to make a Teddy Ruxpin type toy and wanted to know how they did the voice. And it was a voiceover artist, Yeah. And then that's when that gentleman got known for doing voiceovers for toys. It's really, really cool if you can get into a niche market like that. Cartoon, when you're doing character voices, if just because you can do toy voices doesn't mean you can do character voices for cartoons.
Right, exactly.
And it has been told. Now, I'm friends with a very well-known character actress online, who you would recognize her voice if you ever heard it. But one of the things that she says about cartoon voices is that if you don't live in LA or New York, you're really not going to be able to get into that industry.
Right.
However, someone like me who can do character voices and who has done them for years can get into doing funny phone messages or explainer videos or little animations online or animations for corporate, in-house videos, things like that. So there's so many different little niche markets, even within the markets that you can do. You can pick a genre, and within that genre, there's going to be several little niche markets that you can go into. You may never, ever do a national commercial online or on television or radio. It just may never happen. But
and
that doesn't mean you're
that,
not a voiceover artist.
Exactly. And even in that, you can still have a very successful and enjoyable career.
Absolutely.
And not be the national radio or television or broadcast voice of any Fortune 500 company. Just because I have relationships with those type of companies doesn't mean that I'm more successful necessarily than somebody that doesn't, or that's not their thing. And again, the industry is changing so much and evolving so much right now. It's so hard to really find an expert when we're going kind of back to the coaching, to somebody that's actually an expert in what's exactly going on right now. Honestly, and most coaches will be honest with you and tell you it's evolving, it's changing a lot. We're still kind of trying to make this up as we're going along. Not only just in the art of voice, but in the business of voice also. Right. I mean, as well as I do, a lot of the Facebook groups that we're on, man, you start talking about the different niches and the different business aspects of it, and those conversations get pretty heated. Yeah, because we're all still trying to figure it out, and everybody wants to make sure they're feeding their families too, as well. Right. Being compensated fairly for what's going on. There was an artist,
which is a whole other discussion.
It really is. I don't want to get really into it, but there was an artist that talked about we have to figure out, are we artists or are we service people? Right. I kind of think we're both, depending on what exactly you're doing and which niche. But it's a wonderful career. It's a very difficult career. It's rewarding. It's very challenging. And so if there's anybody that's interested in doing it, the first thing I would say is do your research. Spend quite a bit of time researching to see what the industry actually is, and not just the this veil that we have up of this wonderfully successful glamorous acting career that we have, of course.
We can't all be Angelina Jolie, just like we can't all be Joe Cipriano. And on that note, we are going to break for commercial, but when we come back, we're going to tell you who Joe Cipriano is. We're going to tell you what he does, and we're going to tell you why he's the standard in the voiceover industry, as well as talk about how you can do it too. We'll be right back.
For centuries, essential oils have been trusted to treat injuries, bring health and wellness, and peace of mind. Rocky Mountain Oils has that knowledge and experience and brings the purest essential oils to your family. Offset the high cost of medicine and rely on the experience, trust, and insight of the ancients and Rocky Mountain Oils. Call 1-866-493-8159 or visit us at www.rockymountainoils.com.
Welcome back to Things in My Head. We are talking voiceovers today, and I have with me Erik Reynolds, who is only one of the voices of some of the brands that you've heard of, Hitachi, Duncan Donuts, and others, a few other technology companies that maybe you might even have peripherals sitting on your desktop right now. But Mr. Reynolds is one of the people that I go to when I need to talk it out, because let me tell you, this industry, this voiceover industry, can be challenging. And there have been very few people who have made it. In fact, if you talk about the people who have been extreme successes in this industry, you're probably only going to come up with maybe a handful of names.
Right.
And one of those names is Joe Cipriano. Now, let me tell you who he is. He has been around for a very long time. In fact, he jokes that one of the first jobs that he ever got was being the phone voice for Fox Studios. When you called Fox Studios, he was the guy on the recording, hi, this is Fox Studios, you've reached this number, So he's that guy, and they probably still have him as their voice on their phone system. But he actually was an old radio guy, and a lot of old radio guys got their start that way, and they moved into voiceovers later. But Joe Cipriano is the voice that you hear in between the shows and in between commercials on network television, like CBS, for example, the CW, Fox. If you hear any of the teasers for, say, Family Guy, or what is the other shows that he does, Family Guy, Vampire Diaries, any of those shows, you'll hear the announcer comes on and he goes, up next on, or tonight on this show. That's Joe Cipriano, and he is very, very successful in this business. And he is a standard in this business because everybody wants to be him. Everybody wants to work as hard as he does, and everybody wants to have that voice, that famous voice.
Yeah, and I believe he was the voice of the Grammys, the Primetime Emmys, the VH1 Awards. He's done a lot
everywhere.
of those.
Pretty much any voice you've heard on national network television at some time or another, you've heard Joe's voice. And let me tell you, he is one of the sweetest people that you will ever get to know. He's very down to earth, and he really supports new artists in the voiceover industry. He's not one. I call them voiceover snobs, and I'm not going to touch on that too much. But there are people in this industry who believe that if you're just starting out and you don't know what you're doing, then you're really not a voiceover artist.
You don't deserve to be in the industry.
Yeah, you don't deserve to be in the industry. And that's not true, because everybody got their start somewhere.
Right.
So let's be real. If you're not making national commercials and making the money that Joe is, then, are you a success? Absolutely. And that was another question that was on one of the forums, I think today, actually, when I looked this morning on Facebook. What makes you a success? And I think it's when you find what you love doing and you do your best at it, and you can make a living at it, then you're a success.
Yeah.
And that holds true in the voiceover industry. You don't have to be another Joe Cipriano, or Mr. LaFontaine, who was the voice of the movie trailer
trailers.
voice, the famous movie trailer voice.
In a world.
Let's do the
voice.
movie.
In a world.
In a world where, yes, that was him. And he's since passed, and great loss to the voiceover industry. But these guys, they started out very humble beginnings, and we did too. Back when we started, we were in local production jobs. I was in radio, you were in church production, and I mean, there was no glory in that.
No, it was hot and sweaty. And
I sat in a production room doing everybody else's commercials.
Exactly. And to kind of touch on that, like I said, everybody really does start somewhere. And it's one thing I never want to forget. We talked about this. I like being helpful to those that are getting started. If you've got passion, if you've got kind of a sense of purpose and direction, I'll do everything I can to kind of help point you in the right direction as far as within the industry. I'm not a coach. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think I'll ever be a coach. That's not really what I do. I'm not the guy you want to go to for performance tips and techniques. I probably make a lot of mistakes. But I really, really, really like the idea of working really, really hard for something that you really, really want. And if that's what you've got, and that's one of the things about Joe Cipriano that I love is he's never made any qualms about it. He's one of the hardest working and one of the luckiest guys in the voiceover industry, but he's also one of the most, humble and nice and helpful people you'll ever come across as well. And it's one of those guys that you really want to kind of emulate, not necessarily their voice or trying to imitate them, but emulate their work. So you have even just a bit of the kind of success that they end up having.
Well, their work ethic goes a long way. In this business, we do have a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, there are tons of people just like Erik and I who are ask us a question. For the most part, we'll tell you. If you message me on Facebook and I don't know who you are, but you private message me on Facebook and beg me to be your mentor, I probably won't. But I'm not a voiceover coach. I do vocal coaching. I do character acting coaching, that sort of thing. I do singing coaching, that sort of thing, performance coaching. But as far as specifically voiceover coaching, I do not do that. But I do coach a lot of, actually I coach about 3 or 4 right now, voiceover artists who want to learn to manipulate their voice a little better. Maybe a different dialect or accent or a character voice or older or younger or, something that they need for a commercial coming up. I can help them with that. And I'll have the information for that on my website if you want to get into that. However,
and I'll endorse you real quick about that too. I think you're absolutely wonderful coach. You've done amazing work with me personally. So anybody that's looking for, like I said, maybe not like career coach, voiceover. I don't think that's what you're wanting to do.
No. And I'm not qualified, to be honest with you. I mean, being in the voiceover industry does not give you the expertise to be a voiceover coach. It's not for everybody. But yeah,
sure. But I mean, if they're looking for somebody to help, like you said, with kind of the manipulation of the voice, the dialect, and things like that, I would absolutely give Angel a call or hit her up on Facebook and see if that works for you.
Well, if you want to sound like this, then you can always call me up.
Anyway. Don't call me on that one. Absolutely. And let me reiterate again for your listeners, I am not a vocal coach. I like to think I can be like a big brother to some newer ones coming in, maybe kind of point in the right direction. I know of a lot of really great coaches, but that is not me. I don't coach. I don't pretend to try to coach. I just want to see people that want to be successful. I want to see them pointing in the right direction and give them the best shot,
I think a lot of times we have to preface some of our advice with, I will tell you my experience, but here's a really good coach.
Exactly.
It's almost like you have to put that disclaimer in there all the time. Otherwise, you'd have 1,000 people trying to do what you do or trying to pick your brain all the time. And sometimes you get bad advice. Let's face it,
Well, yeah. And one thing we had talked about before is there's a handful of, I think they're well-meaning probably at the beginning, but they've gotten so frustrated with answering the exact same question over and over again. They're coaches or they may have a name in the industry, but they're starting to answer these exact same questions very frustrated.
Right.
And so they're frustrated with new people because they're having to answer the same questions over and over again, or they're frustrated with some of the new marketplaces in the industry that aren't either, say the best paying jobs or maybe not to union scale.
Right.
If they're a union artist in some of the new non-union marketplaces.
Which is something that we haven't talked about, union or non-union. Really, I would say a good majority of voiceover artists today, especially home studio artists, are non-union.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think a majority of us are, for the reason that we talked about earlier, because the industry is globalized so much that I have access to I've got a great relationship with a wonderful studio out in London. Well, as far as their American voices, they're only working with non-union talents. For several reasons, like I said, with this globalization, and also, of course, now the market is kind of fluctuating as far as the price per minute, price per hour, price per spot, things like that. Set standards for yourself.
And remember, the international and local, not the same.
It is not.
If you're working in the United States, if you're doing a voiceover, like an explainer video, like we talked about before, something that's going to explain a product or a company, you may have one price in the United States, but if you do that same thing over in, say, Saudi Arabia, it's going to be a completely different price. And you need to know what those scales are in those different countries. London is one that really, that we both work with a lot, actually. If it's who I think you're talking about, it may be the same company that we work with.
Yeah, I won't put them out there right now so they don't become inundated.
But yeah, no. But they do, they have their own set scale in London. Yeah. And sometimes you come back with, how much, they'll ask you, how much do you charge for this? And you don't know where they're from, because it's just the name of a production company that even maybe a new one that they don't even have a real presence online yet or something like that. Or they're very stealth companies are a big thing right now. Non-disclosures are a big thing right now. So they may not even tell you who they are, but they'll ask you what your rates are, and you give an American rate and they end up overseas somewhere and they're like, well, you're way high.
Right.
And you're thinking, not for non-union. I'm kind of like, I keep thinking I'm really on the low end of the scale here.
And even to that, 1 minute in America is not all universal either. 1 minute for me working with Hitachi is a completely different scale than, say, in my local market, which is a very small market. Actually, I don't really do local market work myself, because sometimes the rates are just a little too low for such a small market. So the things like that, those are some of the research that people that are looking to get into the industry, they need to do before they ever get into the pricing structure, things like that. Really, there's a lot of them out there, and I don't know, maybe something we can maybe talk about another time, but what type of introductory classes are the right ones? How much should you pay for an introductory class? Should you take a free one? Who are you taking the introductory class from? And
there are tons of them out there. And I will tell you, I will say this, that there are a lot of them out there. One of the ones that I personally, and this is my own advice to you, my own personal advice, one of the ones that I have struck up a relationship with is Edge Studios, because they do a really great breakdown of all the things that we are talking about today on their website, and they give a lot of this information away for free.
Yeah.
So if you want to find out like what the rates are that some of these people are paying, or even practice scripts, never ever use them on your demos, but practice scripts, things like that, edgestudio.com, they're a great resource just to even look it up and see if you even want to be in this business. It's less than $100 to take their introductory course to find out what it's all about and see if you even have the chops to do this.
Yeah. I would second that. Edge Studio is a great place to get started.
Really
a lot of resource, and it's really, really well organized as well. And it's not just one of those we'll take anybody's money and run with it type thing. They're really getting a voiceover education. Yeah. And it's not free. And I would kind of shy away personally, just in my own personal experience. Generally, if I'm taking something that's free, it's kind of become almost like the timeshare thing for me.
Well, not only that, but you get what you pay for in a lot of cases.
Yeah, really, you do. And you get in there and they start kind of giving you some information, but it's just enough to maybe take their next course, or just enough to sign up for their year, 2 years, 3 years of coaching. And that's not necessarily the thing you want. You don't want to get yourself pigeonholed into one thing. I work with several coaches actually, either directly in private lessons or through their webinars or their seminars, teleseminars.
And that's a good point. Sometimes you have to have, for example, you and I work together on the whole characters and, the age and that sort of thing, the manipulation of your voice. However, I'm not going to be the person that you call when you need to do a commercial for a specific genre. And, it may be a tech commercial. For example, Microsoft may call up one day and say, hey, I want you to be our national spokesperson. You would never call me for that because that's not what I do. However, and they did call.
They did. I actually, I can say it now. I'm actually one of the voices that they use for their promotions for their new tablet, the Surface Pro 3.
Look at that.
That just released last month. So
I told you, 18-year overnight sensation.
I just kind of woke up, decided to get showered one day, hop in front of a.
Bought a mic at Radio Shack, and away you go.
Exactly.
And we're laughing at that, but hey, people do that, and I got to tell you, that's generally not the way to go. Like we said, go get a coach first. Okay.
One thing I did do, I have 4 children. You know this. They range from 2 years old to 14 years old. And they love that daddy has his little studio. It has microphones, things like that. And so one thing we've decided to do is pretty regular. We'll do a music studio. We'll put on their favorite Disney track and they'll come into the booth and record. And it's a lot of fun. Well, I don't necessarily want my 2-year-old and her fingers and all the things she's probably eaten that day and all the things she's probably played in that day and not washed touching my equipment. So I did. I actually went out and bought a little $30 microphone. It looks really pretty, a lot like my $1,400 microphone, but I unscrew the $1,400 microphone off. I put the little $30 microphone on, and we have a great time. So there's actually I found purpose with the little, dollar store microphone.
There is. And, and I want to say here, too, we're doing a podcast, and podcasting and voiceovers, they can cross over, but they're two totally different animals.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. And Erik and I both do podcasts on a professional level. And, whenever I do a seminar on podcasting and I talk to people, it inevitably comes up, well, you do voiceovers too. How do I get into that? Can I go from point A to point B from podcasting to voiceovers? You can, but it's going to be a real stretch.
Yeah, there's a different skill
it's
set.
It's totally different animal.
Well, because like I said, I podcast, I host podcasts as well right now. And I got that opportunity through my voiceover career, but I had to learn a new skill set really to be able to be a podcast host. And it's not impossible. I mean, like I said, I do it right now myself, but it is a different skill set. And even from radio commercial, TV commercial, I do a lot of to narration. It's a different skill set. Animation.
Audiobooks are hot right now.
Yeah.
Let me put this out here officially. Do not call me to do an audiobook.
Do not call me either. I do
Just
not do
because
them.
I do voiceovers does not mean I'm doing an audiobook.
I don't do audiobooks myself either. It's one of the fastest growing niches in our industry, but it is not for me.
Yeah, but you know what? After you get the coach, if it's something that, you want to try out voiceovers, it is a really good genre to try out and see if you can maintain. Because sometimes, you get a lot of these 1-2 minute jobs, but sometimes you get 3, 4, 5 minute jobs and you're thinking that's not very long. Well, when you're sitting there talking and reading a script, 5 minutes is a very long time. When you're in a booth with very little ventilation and you've got kids, like you said, on the other side of the door that you're trying to keep quiet, the construction is going on in the neighborhood or whatever. I mean, you can only pay off so many construction workers, people. The fact of the matter is that 5 minutes becomes an eternity sometimes. And if you can't maintain that, if you can't maintain a vocal for 5 minutes and make it consistent, that's the key. Volume, tone, level, everything has to be consistent. You can't be shifting back and forth and that sort of thing like we can in the podcast. We're very loose today. You can't do that in voiceover. You have to be right on the money because these people are not going to pay you $100 for a one-line script if you can't do that. It's just not going to happen. Right. You want the big bucks? Go get the coaching. Get the proper equipment. Get a coach that knows the business, not just the voice. And then after you've been in it for a little while and you're looking for getting specific jobs, then call me. Then we'll do some voice coaching. But Erik, we've got a few minutes left, but I really want to pick your brain for our listening audience. If you could give us one piece of your best advice for someone who is not even in the industry, just thinking about it, what would you tell them? Best piece of advice.
The best piece of advice? Oh, gosh. Don't quit your day job. No, I'm kidding.
That probably is the best piece of advice.
It actually is a pretty good piece of advice. Just don't rush into anything. Just like you wouldn't rush into a teaching career. You wouldn't rush into any kind of other professional career. There's a lot of training that has to go in, a lot of education has to go in, a lot of thought and planning that has to go into it. And the same thing in the voiceover business. I know Angel makes it sound super easy because she's so good at it.
Ditto right back at you, dude.
But that's our job. We've worked really, really, really hard to make sure it sounds as effortless as possible when we're working. Duncan Donuts wants me to sound like I enjoy Duncan Donuts, and be honest, I don't get to eat them because they're not local. I have to drive literally about an hour to go get my Duncan Donuts, and I do eat them when I travel, of course. But just make sure you take your time. Absolutely look into and do the research, and maybe get an audiobook or a Kindle download. There's several great books. Get Joe Cipriano's book.
Yeah, another one of our friends. Making Money in Your Pajamas.
What wonderful book. Wonderful also help to the industry as well. On the business side of things, there's a guy I follow, and he's got great advice. It really kind of gets the new era of voiceover too. His name's Bill DeWeese. Does a lot of really great business side, and he's a marketing guy himself.
Yes. Love Bill. And he does videos online. He's a really good one. If you want to go on YouTube and you actually search voiceovers, he is one of the guys that will come up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think each week, if not maybe a couple times each week, he's posting new videos. So
East West Audio.
Yes, yeah.
Another show. They do a live show every Monday night. You can actually get in on that, whether you're in the industry or you're not. They talk about the tech stuff.
Yeah.
And they talk about, some of the pitfalls, some of the new equipment coming out, and they will review new equipment coming out and saying, hey, is it worth the money?
Right.
You talked about a $1,400 mic. Not everybody can afford that, but
and
hey,
not everybody needs it either, to be honest.
Yeah, and not everybody needs one. It depends on what genre you're in, what subgenre you're in, what you're doing, what you're making the most of your money at, and how long you've been in the business. Right. It really does. But yeah, and East West Audio will let you know what the lower end of the spectrum is and what you can get by with and move up. Sometimes it's a question of having to upgrade. Yeah. Sometimes you have to upgrade your stuff.
I started my career, honestly, on a $99 microphone. And I did a lot of research. I made sure I was buying spending my money wisely. I just didn't.
Dude, yours was more expensive than mine.
And that's the story for a lot of us, And I think for your listeners, if they're thinking about getting into the industry, we talked about a lot of things. It can seem overwhelming. And to be honest, it can be a little overwhelming when you're talking about equipment and the business side of it and performance and, the career, all the things. It can be overwhelming. That's why you really need to take your time and make sure you're doing the research. Don't go quit your job on Friday and think Monday morning that you're going to be a voiceover artist,
right.
Making a living. The right. reality of it is that even you and myself, as long as we've been doing it, we still have challenges and struggles that we have to go through and talk each other through. Yeah. One of the great things about our friendship.
And honestly, there are going to be times, even, if you are, quote, successful in this business and you do have a fairly steady roster of work, you will not always get a paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just the whole, small business owner reality. And, of course, that's another, big key, small business owner. But just to get back to your question, the one big piece of advice is research. Yeah. And, take an introductory class. If you're in maybe one of the larger areas, maybe do some research, find a voiceover artist in the area and maybe try to link up with them on Facebook or Twitter and say, hey, can I take you to lunch and just pick your brain? And for the most part, a lot of these guys are really nice. You buy them a nice meal. I'm sure they'll let you ask them questions.
Most of them, if you buy them a meal, heck, a Starbucks coffee will work sometimes,
Yeah, I mean, just take me out to the driving range.
We are starving artists.
Yeah, we are.
We're going to have to kind of wrap up things a little bit here because we've actually talked about a lot. But just as a recap here, if you want to get into the voiceover industry, we're not going to discourage you. If you think you got the chops to do it, get an assessment. Go to someplace like Edge Studio or another reputable coach. Do your research online. Biggest piece of advice Erik could give you, research. Not only the voiceover industry, but coaches, agents, people in the industry, people that you want to rub noses with or rub elbows with just to pick their brains. Do your research on those people. We will tell you that every time because you don't want to be straight down the wrong path. And once you find a coach, once you find out maybe where you might fit in, sometimes where your voice fits in is not necessarily the genre you had in your head, I did a lot of telephone work in the beginning, but I couldn't do it now to save my neck. So, and things change. The industry's changing all the time. Keep up on what's going on. Join the Facebook groups. There are a lot of them on Facebook that are for new talent, professional talent, people who have been in the business for a long time. Sometimes they're mixed. You just really have to do your research to find out where you're going to fit in at what particular time in your career. Take a look at how much this industry really is paying, because the fact of the matter is that we make less than commission. Unless you're Joe Cipriano, like we said, you're probably making less than commission. Now we do know a few people who are making really good money. One particular friend of ours wakes up every morning with a $2,000 job every morning. But it's rare. It is so rare that when something like that happens, it's almost like the phenomenon, and you're thinking, wow, I can do that. Well, yeah, you can, but it's a overnight sensation that happens over a half a decade, because you're having to work so hard at it. It's an everyday job. It's more than 40 hours a week. It's time away from your family. It's time away from holiday holidays, it's time everywhere you go on holiday, you got to find a studio or you got to take one with you, something like that. You've always got to be ready. You've always got to be there for the client. If you really want to make a living at this, there's no such thing as vacation, really. And that's kind of a joke in our industry that, oh my gosh, we're going on vacation. Where's the nearest phone? I got to find a studio. It's hard work. It is having your own business, but it's actually even harder than that because you're an artist.
Right.
Like you said, you have to be the businessman. And if you've got a home studio, you have to be your own engineer, which is a whole other show. You have to learn how to do your own engineering. And that is a big learning curve. That's been a big learning curve for me, where Erik has helped me out a lot. So we've given you our best advice. We've touched on everything that we could possibly think of to touch on for voiceovers. Basically, if you do have questions and you want to find out more about the voiceover industry, go to thingsinmyhead.net. And remember, we dropped the blog. We added a net, so thingsinmyhead.net. We have on our contact page, you can actually call us and leave us a message. And when you do that, if I can't answer your question or if Erik can't answer your question, then we will put you in touch with someone who can and possibly get you started on the road to your next career. Who knows? But just know it's not an overnight sensation, and it'll probably take a very long time, and you may not see a paycheck for a while. So, don't quit your day job.
But if it is something that you really, once you've done the research and figured this is what you want to do, just go for it. Absolutely go for it. Don't let anybody discourage you. Hopefully nothing we've said today is discouraging. Hopefully it's encouraging. It is a lot of work, but it's absolutely worth it if it's what you're meant to do.
Yeah, and I think if you have a passion for it, it is one of the most rewarding. It really is. Even when you don't get a paycheck, it can be a real blast. Some of the auditions that I do are so much fun. I think I've even told you that a few times. So we're going to get Erik to do what he does best. How's that?
Oh, my goodness.
We're going to get him to 10 seconds. Erik, you got 10 seconds to wow us with your commercial voice. Give us your best commercial voice.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, commercial voice, 10 seconds. Okay, here we go. If you're looking for a reputable voice direction coach, looking to get into the industry, you need to reach out to Angel Birch at angelicvoiceovers.com.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Oh, no problem. The invoice is in the mail.
There you go. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Just kidding.
Oh, gosh. If and I got to tell you, Erik has been one of those people, we are friends, but we do bounce a lot of ideas off of each other. And he's been one of those people that have helped me in this new market because, like I said, I took a break from it for a while, came back, and everything had changed. And Erik has been stellar in helping me to get into this whole, you have to have a demo in the internet and all of this kind of stuff. Whereas before, everything was one-on-one with me, so I didn't have to worry about the internet. It was like internet who, but so there's a lot to this. And the demo is another thing that we didn't even touch on. We didn't have time, but just so you know, do not do your demo until you are absolutely ready, till you've talked to a coach, till you know what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely want to put your best foot forward and not have to try to make a second first impression.
If you put your voice out there, let me just say this. If you put your voice out there and you don't have a good demo and you're not doing it right, the studios, the production companies, the casting directors, the agents, they will know. And when they know that, you will probably not get hired from those people because they remember you. And when you want someone to remember you is when you put your best foot forward, or in this case, your best voice. But that's it for our show today. If you are interested in voiceovers, give me a call. We'll take your message. And like I said, if Erik or I can't help you, we'll put you in touch with someone who can, and we'll get you on your way if that's your passion. You can always reach us at thingsinmyhead.net. You can go to the contact page there and leave us a message or send us an email. That's okay. Or if you want to reach us on my webpage at angelicvoiceovers.com, you can do that as well. You can hear my demos up there. Erik, you can find Erik at ericaudio.com. And you can hear all of his demos there and find out what real commercial demos sound like when somebody sends us donuts. Really, guys. Okay. That's it for today. Erik, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Next week, we've got a really fantastic show for you because we have Paul Dean back. Yeah, he is our Rocky Mountain Oils guy. He's going to be talking to us and taking your questions on essential oils. So if you have a question, again, go to that contact page, www.thingsinmyhead.net, and leave us a question for Paul Dean about essential oils because he's going to be answering all your questions. And after that, by the way, I've got a little surprise for you. We'll be announcing something really special coming up in August you don't want to miss next time.